Welcome back to Brad's Car Mods. I'm Brad. This should have been basically part 6 of the KSWAP project series, where we're doing wiring and stuff, and that's coming soon. And actually, this box back here behind me contains the wiring, but there is a bunch of stuff that needs to be done before we can actually start the car. And so I actually made a list of things: clutch, shifter, bolt, the crank pulley bolt, steering and suspension, some transmission fluid. You can see a whole list of things. So this is going to be a 5.5 part episode, so we can knock all that kind of stuff out. It's been like a month and a half since we've been out here filming actually in the garage because of life. We did some vacations, and my oldest son graduated. A couple of odds and ends like that. But now Sam and I have a little bit of time to hang out in the garage. So one of the things we wanted to do was we're just going to open the box real quick and actually show, because there's, in addition to the wiring, some other cool parts in there. So I wanted to open this box with Sam because the wiring that's in the box, yes, the wiring is cool. It's a fancy wiring harness from K-Power Industries. And I think that'll be awesome. And obviously a necessary part for this project. The other part that's in here, though, is the intake. So I'll explain in a second why I need a new intake. But I have not seen one of these in person, and I think it's going to be one of those really cool parts that you will actually get to see, unlike the flywheel and stuff like that we said was really cool, but is buried in the bowels of the car, and you can't actually see it. This part will be on full display. A couple other parts in here too. So this is, I think the throttle position sensor. Yeah. So I ordered for the throttle body. So here's the K-Power Industries throttle body. And this is the throttle position sensor. It's a Hall effect sensor to feedback to the ECU the position of the throttle. So this little guy, I got buried, goes on here and feeds back to the computer the position of. So that's fun. I love that everybody includes stickers. Fun parts there. All right. And I guess this is the wiring harness. All in one. Woo, buddy. This is everything we need to make the so the wiring harness. Obviously, it's a Honda engine putting it into a Mazda car. So things like running the speedometer and the RPM gauge and all the gauge cluster, all that stuff needs to be hooked up. This is injector sub harness. So we need to be able to feed all the sensors from the engine into the ECU, which will be a Haltech ECU, but also needs to read all the sensors from the car too. So this is a new fuse box that will sit next to the factory fuse box, pull power from there, and let's go ahead and just pull out some of these. So yeah, here's kind of the connecting harness between some of the Miata parts. So here's clutch switch to know when the clutch is put in. And of course here's the bulk of the harness. So this of course will be spread across the engine bay and plug into the various sensors around the engine, and then go through the firewall up into where the ECU is going to live. So there's a couple of options for the wiring harness. You can go a little cheaper. I've read some horror stories about the cheap Chinese versions that allow you to do wire tucks and stuff like that. If you get it wrong, you could potentially burn up your ECU, and boom, there's $2,000 gone. So this was not cheap, but it's quality checked, built by K-Power Industries, and all their instructions and support and all that fun stuff comes with it. So it's all going to be worth it to be able to just route everything and plug everything in. I don't even have to remove the dash with this new harness. They used to have to remove the dash. Now you don't have to. You have to splice a couple of wires, these right here, I'm guessing, directly into the back of the gauge cluster, but you pull the pod off, pull the gauge cluster out, put the wires in, and put it back, and that's really the extent of the splicing that you have to do. That is awesome. Here's the fun box. Box within a box. Pull that out. Yeah, but are you excited? Bolts, obviously. Gasket. Yes. Got the K-Power logo on there. That's a very nice part. So, why did this take so long to get in the mail? I actually thought it was the wiring, because they custom build the wiring when you order it. They don't have a bunch sitting on the shelf because it's expensive, I'm sure. But I ordered this at the same time, and when I ordered it, I checked the box to powder coat it black, and as you can see, it is not black. So after like a month and a half, I called K-Power Industries and asked them what was going on, and they said, "Oh, we're just waiting on things to come back from our foundry. They outsource the building of these to a foundry, and then do quality check when it comes in, etc." And I said, "Okay, that's fine. I can't really badger them about it." And then I hung up the phone. Less than a minute later, the guy called me back and said, "Here's what actually is going on. I looked into what you ordered. When they come back from the foundry, they are powder coated this color to make them nice and bright. And then they send the ones that wanted black off to a powder coater, a local powder coater, to coat them black. And for some reason, they were having some issues with that guy. And so the support person said, "Hey, I can just ship you, I have these on the shelf. I can just ship you one of these, and you, if you want it black, you can powder coat it black yourself using a local person or whatever." And I said, "Yes, do that, because I'm tired of waiting." And so actually this will be sent off to a local powder coater here, because I still want it to be black. I have an overall theme for this engine, you'll see later on. So I want this part to be black. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to send this off to powder coat. But that is very cool. Obviously throttle body goes here. So, dude, look how this thing is beefy. So why did I need an intake? Well, originally this motor, like I said, if you follow the series, you kind of understand this is out of this is a JDM import, so it's out of technically a Honda Accord. In the States, it would be out of an Acura TSX. In those cars, the motor sits sideways, horizontally, with the intake side being up front, and so the intake here and the throttle body kind of being here. So in this car, it has to sit longitudinally, long ways in the car. So if you just turn the motor, then the intake will be here and the throttle body will be back here. And obviously that is not a good idea for bringing air in the front. So go ahead and put that in place then. So they have this one built so that, and you can go ahead and tilt it up just a little bit so that it's, go ahead and put it on the, so this will obviously get sandwiched up against the motor there, but so the throttle body then moves over over to here, like so. Am I doing something? Maybe like that. Yeah, like that. So yeah, the that throttle position sensor kind of goes upwards. Interestingly, the throttle cable is way underneath there. I didn't realize that. That's kind of cool though. So that brings the air intake toward the front. Man, that is a sexy looking part. Sam's laughing too. Yeah, that looks awesome. So that's how it's finally going to look. And then, of course, on the passenger side is where the exhaust will be. I haven't ordered that yet. So yeah, that'll come down some headers and go underneath the engine. And that's why we had to do this new subframe. So we have all this room down here for those headers to go down underneath and go down the driver's side of the car. Just adding that one part, like all of a sudden makes it look like, holy crap, it's starting to come together even more. Getting the engine and subframe in the car was a huge step, but when you start adding the required components like the throttle body or the intake and soon the exhaust and all that stuff, it gets exciting because it's starting to look like an engine. Alright, I've already got the IRP shifter installed and the center console installed. There's no reason for me to actually go through that installation process with you on camera because I actually had a whole video series on when I installed that shifter and a review afterwards. So if you're curious how all that goes back together, just go and find that video on my channel. I'll put a link in the description. Next thing on the list though is we're going to go, and I've already done the shifter, so let's mark that off real quick. Let's mark off the shifter real quick. We just did that. Next, I'm actually going to do the bolt. The shifter is all I needed to get the bolt installed. And by bolt, I mean this crank pulley bolt right here. This bolt is for the super damper, to the ATI super damper down here. You can see I put a sticker on there for bolt because I couldn't torque the bolt down without the transmission and everything all hooked up in the car so I can put it in gear and put the emergency brake on in the car. Otherwise I would just be spinning the engine. So this was in here just as a reminder for myself. I'll get rid of that. Finally. And then for the bolt, we're just going to do some blue Loctite on the threads here and torque it down. Simple as that. I finally did get this bolt installed and torqued down. I didn't record it because it took me 3 tries to figure out what I needed to do because, you know, again, not a master mechanic over here, trying to do this stuff on my own. And the problem I had was with the car sitting on the ground, even with it in gear, it kept, whenever I would try to torque this bolt down, it takes 181 foot-pounds. So I have a huge torque wrench to do this, but it gives me lots of leverage. And it ends up trying to turn the motor over because I'm twisting the crankshaft here, which is obviously directed all the way, connected all the way through the drivetrain. So even though I had the emergency brake on and it was in gear, it still wasn't enough to hold the car still. I probably could have had somebody come over and push on the brakes, but I was in the middle of redoing the brake master cylinder stuff. So what I ended up doing is getting this guy, which is a rubber wrench basically. And you can see it's installed right now. It's basically what allows you to grip a round thing like this. And so it has a really good, it's good for like oil filters and stuff like that too, but allows you to grip something round like that. So I just tightened it down on here, put it up against this next pulley over, and torqued it down. And I actually got it. So I was kind of excited about that. And now that means, finally, one more thing off the list. Moving on. All right, I now have this all loosened up here, this bracket and the what holds the master cylinder or the brake reservoir, master reservoir to the actual master cylinder. There's 4 bolts that go through the firewall with some nuts on the other side that actually hold this to the firewall. So this needs to come out because I am going to replace that with that honed development part to delete the brake master. So in order to do that, I need to get in the car and up underneath the steering wheel and remove those 4 nuts. And then also the brake pedal actually needs to come out because I've got to re-drill a hole in there to kind of move the fulcrum of the brake to give me a little bit more leverage because I'm deleting some of the assisted boost. To do that, it'll be easier if I put the car up on the quick jacks, just to get, because the car sits low, to get the car up off the ground, because I'm going to be reaching up underneath the dash. It also is going to be helpful later on because I need to fill the transmission with oil, and you have to do that from underneath. So being able to roll up underneath the car with it up in the air will be super helpful. So I'm going to get it up on the quick jacks, and then we can try to get a shot of me up underneath the dash and show you what I'm talking about. Hopefully this is easy enough to see, but there's 4 bolts that go through the firewall with a nut on the end of it. I think they're 12 millimeter. Yep. Bigger extension for the win. Hopefully. This is, by the way, this is why no one ever films this stuff. It's impossible. Okay, I did manage to get all 4 nuts off. The trick is just use several long extensions with a kind of wobbly on the end. Also, this kick panel right here underneath the console, take that off because that gave me some more visibility up into there, which was super helpful. And then once I got that out of the way, I was able to see another bolt up here for the ECU, and I got that removed, so you can see it gave me a lot more room. At least loosen that to get to those top nuts on this side to be able to get to it, otherwise it's really tight in there. The last thing is I got to remove the brake pedal itself, which you can see there's just a pin right here with a cotter key on their side, so I got to remove that, pull that pin, and at the top there's a nut and bolt. Bolt that goes all the way through, and there's a nut on this other side. So taking that off will allow me to, and then there's a spring up there that kind of is what puts some of the return tension on the brake lever itself. Once I remove those 3 things, then I can pull this brake lever off completely. And then this piece here is part of the master cylinder that kind of comes through the firewall. I actually, at this point, really don't know what will end up coming through here once I put that new part on. So we'll learn together. I'm going to finish getting the brake pedal off. Okay. Now that I have the brake pedal out, I can show you, with all this free workbench space here. There's 3 spots here. You got to unclip the spring, which is, you just keep tension on the brake pedal, so when you let off the brake, it comes back forward. This is the pin that goes through the, there's a fork that comes out from the firewall that is the back side of the brake master cylinder. And this pin, I lost it. This pin goes through here, and this cotter key keeps that on. And then this pushes against the master cylinder, and then this big bolt goes through here and actually connects the top of the brake pedal to a mount point on the dash. And what's going to change is this hone development piece here that is going to replace the brake master cylinder. Comes with this template right here to be able to move the pivot point to a different spot. I think it moves it, I don't know, I think it moves it down. And that's what, basically put that on there and then drill another hole. And that's what enables me to get a little bit of leverage back once I remove the vacuum assisted brake boost. Obviously I'll lose a little bit of assistance, but moving that pivot point will allow me to gain some of that strength back. So I'm not going to do that right this second. That's going to sit aside because I need to, now that I have everything loose on the backside, this guy here, yeah, is nice and loosey-goosey. So next step is to try and remove just the brake master cylinder. I got to pull it through the firewall, of course. I'm going to just pop these lines out of these little keepers here. Try not to disconnect all these brake lines just to keep the brake system sealed. Not a requirement. It's probably easier if I may end up having to do that anyway, but if I can keep all of the system sealed, it's one less step to do. So I'm going to try and fight around that. We'll see. First, I'm going to wipe some of the sweat off my brow. It's cooler out here today, but it is still crazy humid. And I just don't do well in the heat. Okay, now the fun part. I need to see if I can get that out without disconnecting all these lines and spilling brake fluid all over the place and all that fun stuff. I might regret this. I don't know. Oh, come on. It's possible. Hell yeah. So I will need to look at the instructions because this piece here somehow needs to get translated over to the home development piece. I'm not really sure how. I gotta go find the instructions, but we'll get that figured out. But this, by the way, if you don't know, it's a vacuum assisted boost. So it basically is a force multiplier on your foot. You push, it pulls with the vacuum and closes that diaphragm inside there. And then when you let off, the spring pulls it all back. But removing this, like I said, will decrease the amount of braking force that I can apply, but I don't need it. I'm, a normal sized person. I can push on the pedal harder. And then obviously, like I said, moving that fulcrum point on the brake lever will allow me to get some of that back. The goal, though, is when you remove this, it gives you more pedal feel. This will absorb some of the feel in the pedal that you feel through your foot, which my goal with this car is as analog as possible. And so removing this piece and switching it out with the home development piece should achieve that. Here's the piece that I'm replacing it with. It's going to sit right here. The question is, like I said, I'm sure I'm going to take that piece off of the brake master so that I can put it back in there because it still has to go through the firewall and still connect to the pedal. So this will sit on here. That'll obviously bolt back up to it. And then, instructions. Okay, I read the instructions. You will need to retain one piece from the original brake master booster. This piece right here. You undo this jam nut, spin that off of there, and this will screw onto the end of one of these two. I think I need the long one. I don't really remember. But that just replaces that. So that's the idea there is reuse this piece so that that can connect back to the brake pedal. So I'm going to take that off and get to drilling on the actual brake lever. All right, I'm going to go ahead and mount this in the vise because I have a vise and I can. Make it a little easier on everybody. So the way this works is simple. They give you a little template here. I was wrong. It goes up, not down. So simply install this with the nut and bolt that they gave you. The brake lever here is actually, it's the way it's cut, it's angled. So that's not even with the edge because I'm going to flip it around. Okay. Okay, now that I have a pilot hole to guide this drill bit, obviously step it up to the bigger one, which I think this is a 5/16 drill bit. Go slow to get it started. Perfect. Now I'm just gonna take a file, clean up the edge just a little. It doesn't matter that much because I'm gonna put a bolt in there and cover it all up, so you're not gonna see it. It's up in the footwell. You'll never see it, but I feel better about it. Okay, somehow I completely lost the audio to this next couple of clips, but reinstalling the hone development part was really simple. It bolts back into the firewall. The instructions are very clear. Once you put all the studs in on either side, and I just kind of cleaned up the surface there where it was mounted to the firewall, and then was able to kind of push everything back together and use the original hardware to kind of pull the brake reservoir to the honed part. It was able to bolt everything back together. That really is awesome and simplifies some stuff. Holy cow. Look how clean that is through there. And the pedal feel, all I wanted to do with my hand was just make sure when I pushed on it, it felt like there was brakes. Because again, I did not break the seal on any of these brakes throughout this whole process actually. And it still had a solid pedal feel. Obviously when I drive it, that will be the actual test. I may have to bleed it again. I may have to make an adjustment to that catcher piece, that fork that goes onto the brake lever itself. I could run that in and out. I may have to adjust that slightly, but there's some adjustability in there, which is cool. Yeah, I'm stoked. Ooh. Well, funny enough. Okay, I did all that brake stuff and totally don't have that on my list. I have clutch, and then there's the shifter, which I already did, and then the bolt, steering, trans fluid, fuel, intake. I don't have brake booster delete on here. And I think it was because I wanted to surprise y'all with what I was doing, and so I didn't even write it on there. So you know what? I'm doing that so I can mark it off. You got to capture the wins, man. Look at that. That's really cool. All right, on to the next thing, which will be clutch. And the reason why I did the brakes now is because the clutch master cylinder goes right here. And while I had that apart, I wanted to do the brake system anyway. So the next part will be to clean this up just a little bit, because that's what was actually leaking, and that's why this paint's all flaking down here. And you can see here, the paint that's right underneath there has been flaking off. That's what clutch fluid, brake fluid, stuff like that does to paint. It eats paint. So while I have that out, I'm going to fix that spot. Not only that, there, now it focused. Not only that, there's another spot over here in the engine bay that's kind of similar. I'm not sure what got there, but the paint's kind of flaking off. So how am I going to fix it is, I bought this kit from POR. It's POR 15. It comes with a couple of cool things in here. So some metal prep. So basically I'll scrape off as much of the loose paint as I can and prep the surface with this. That'll stop any more rust. Cleaner and degreaser. So yeah, I'll use a combination of those two to actually clean everything and do the rust prevention. And then this is glossy black paint that you can use to paint directly over the rust. So clean it, seal it, paint over it, and it comes with all the brushes that you need to do it and some gloves. And so it's a nice complete kit. list is whenever I took the engine out and put the new engine in. Before we did that, we actually had to swap out the entire subframe. There's a whole other video on that. You can go and check that out. There's a link in the description. But in doing that, there's a lot of suspension parts that we had to change or adjust. And taking everything apart, we ended up ruining one of the tie rod ends. They're kind of not replaceable, but kind of a wear item anyway at some point with a lot of miles on a car. And they were pretty wore out. So in replacing those, I tried to get it close as I could. But as you can see, if you look down this side of the car, the wheel is pretty straight. You can just kind of eyeball it and see that the driver's side wheel is straight, and the steering wheel is centered. But then there's the front of the passenger side is kind of towed out a little bit. So instead of them being straight on like this, it looks like this. And so all you got to do is the tie rod ends. It's a threaded rod that has a lock nut on it. You just undo the lock nut and then turn that the tie rod itself, and the threads will adjust the toe on that wheel. So I'm just going to eyeball it and get it pretty close. I will take it to a professional shop to get an alignment done. Shout out to Dave at my local SPS is the name of the shop. He's awesome, and has all my stuff on file and for where I like the alignment. So I'll have that professionally done. However, I did buy a cool thing for a future video to do kind of a DIY self-alignment. I'm gonna try that out and kind of compare them and just see kind of how close I get. It would be nice to, for preparation for a track day, take it and make sure it's aligned properly. But then if something happens at the track day, or even in between autocross events or something like that, just to be able to check my alignment at home and see if it's still within kind of a spec of what I like. Having a tool like that to be able to do a check on my own would be cool instead of having to take it somewhere every single time. So I'm going to do that. So for today, simple. I'm just going to do kind of an eyeball alignment, if you will, on that toe because I know it's so far out. I'll just pull that in a little bit and call that done and check that one off the list. Simple, like I said, undo this lock nut. Ugh, ow. It's a 17 on the lock nut and a 14 on the actual tie rod bar here. So yeah, just undo that a little bit. Literally going to, I think it's this way. Yeah. Man, that was way off. I don't like that. Oh, that's actually, okay, that looks way better. Just kind of doing kind of a back and forth visual. It'll definitely change a little bit once I put the car back on the ground and put weight on it. So I can readjust it then, but that's way closer than it was. So then you just turn that lock nut back. Hold on to that. Hold on to that. Lock that back in place. Simple as that. Toe done. All right, yeah, just looking at that, you can see it's kind of in line with the car, and then I could just switch over to this side, and it's more in line with the car. So that looks way, way better. I will say I'm a little bit worried about the amount of adjustment that I did on that, meaning the amount of threads that are left. I ran it in pretty far, so what really needs to happen, I think, is that I run that back out and then run this one in a little bit. Basically, get the wheels aligned properly with a decent amount of threads on both sides. And then I may have to take the steering wheel, the steering shaft that comes down and connects into the steering rack, take that off and just adjust it there. move it over a couple of splines so that the wheel is then centered, the steering wheel is then centered with the wheels themselves. For now, it's fine. And it's maybe something I do with the alignment guy, Dave. But yeah, for now it's fine. And also that means, turn this camera around here. It also means I get to mark something off the list. This is all I wanted to do temporarily, was to kind of get it close. That way, when I go for a test drive at some point, it will be straight enough that I won't just immediately destroy tires. Moving on to the next thing, which is transmission fluid. I've got a bag of transmission fluid, Valvoline full synthetic 75W90 in the flex fill bag, which is really cool because, and it's the main reason I've got the car up on the lift. It's really easy to fill the transmission. There's a fill hole on the side. You take the bolt out and you just dump fluid in there until it kind of spills over a little bit. There's no dipstick on these cars, nothing like that. You're literally just going to fill it until it starts to overflow and then wipe it down and put the bolt back in. All right, forgive the bald head. Very straightforward to fill the transmission with oil. This is the drain plug. It's already been put back in. I put a little bit of thread sealant on there and tightened it down accordingly. This is the actual fill plug. So you just take that out. It's a 14. And they're really tight for some reason. Jeez. Yeah, I need a bigger wrench. There it goes. All right, and then like I said, take the bag of sealant, or a bag of oil, and I went ahead and I cut the thing too short, which is awesome, you know, so try to make this job that should be easier a little harder on myself. So you literally just have to, there's no, I'm sure there is a measurement of some kind for how much to put in there, but in this case, put enough in there until it starts running out. That was a false alarm there, by the way. It's going to drip a little bit, but this will take, I'm pretty sure, most of the bag. It's only running out because I cut half the nozzle off I shouldn't have. It'll be more obvious here in a second. Maybe it's going to take the whole bag and then some. I don't even know. Okay, we're going to get, I thought it would just take one bag and not even the whole bag, but well, maybe that is enough. It's dripping pretty good there. I'm going to see if I can just tell. No, it will take more. Awesome. I definitely thought one bag would be enough. So, I'm not going to film that. Literally, once you, like I said, you fill it up enough to where it starts running out the side more than just little drips. Put the plug back in with some sealant, snug that back down, you're good to go. I'll go get some more and fill it up. I'm not going to film it. You get the idea. Ready? Next project. I think that's going to be it for this video. This is 5.5, if you will, in a series of 6, maybe 7 videos. I did not knock everything off the list. That's because I got to thinking about the wiring next, and the wiring harness needs to go underneath where the intake is to get to the starter and the alternator and a couple of other odds and ends. And so I think if I did anything else, it would just be in the way to do the wiring. And I've never done this level of wiring in a car before, so I want to have a nice, easy to work on, easy to understand where the car's at. So I'm going to end that video here, and these last couple of 3-4 things can be done really quickly afterwards anyway. So wiring is next. My brother-in-law Carl is on his way over right now, so as I end this video, I'm going to start the next one, and we'll dive in on the wiring. I hope you subscribe to see that, because in the next video, the wiring video, we're going to start this car. The wiring should not be all that bad, and honestly, and a couple other things to button up, like I said, fuel and such, fuel rail, and then we'll be able to start the car. So stick around for that, like and subscribe. If you haven't yet, go check out the link in the description for the store. That's a way to directly support the channel. I've got hats, I've got shirts. This is a KSWAP shirt to kind of commemorate the video series. Hope you go check it out, and check out the next video. Or if you haven't seen the rest of the series, by the way, go watch the rest of the series first and then come back and watch the next one. See ya.